Hi, and welcome to the pre-race show for the AOSC 10. It's fantastic to be back. We've had a week off, but we are going to review round number 10 that came to you from Hockenheim, and then we're going to have a look at everything to do with round 11 coming from Charlotte, of course, race 185 in AOSC history. But, of course, joining me back on the show tonight, couldn't do without the boys, Daniel Leet and, of course, Matthew Norris.
Evening.
How are you doing?
Big shout out to our sponsor, of course. It is the Jinx Shifters AOSC 10. Also a big shout out to A&J Insurance Services, City Computers, Bowler Media Sideways Photography, Simrigs.com, Race Circuit Art Australia, and of course, Track Cams for Gourmets. But as we have been doing in the last few weeks, we have got a guest on the show tonight and want to welcome him along. He's only been with us for a few races, really, 12 races in total, but he's best qualifying position is third, and he's come all so close to getting on that podium, quite a few fourth places. And tonight joining us is Dylan Rudd. Welcome to the show, Dylan.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Mate, it's fantastic to have you here, and a great result. I'm going to talk about it straight away from Hockenheim, but just outside the podium, mate, you almost got there once again.
Yeah, it was a fairly quiet race. I didn't quite have the pace to go with the top three lead cars, unfortunately, but just ran my own race and finished in P4.
Well, we'll get into that in just a second, how it all is going with the new build and everything like that. But I'm just going to run us through our top 20 guys and just have a bit of a run through, see where everyone ended up. Of course, James Scott won once again. Corey Shepherd came second, but remembering in qualifying, Corey Shepherd actually did outpace James Scott and led for a number of laps during the race. Jordan Ross got on the podium in third. Dylan Rudd came in fourth. Andrew Dyson in that normal fifth position, of course. Damien Johnson in sixth. Bailey Frid in seventh. Bradley Vaughan in eighth. Adam Briggs in ninth. In 10th position was Brian Borg. Thomas Hinds just outside the 10 in 11. Michael Taliancic in 12, and super impressive this round. Kyle Stokes in 13th. Greg Sharp in 14th. Then it went to Jamie Dyke in 15th. Brad Rat 2 in 16th. 17th was Christian Smart. 18th was David Kimmond. Brenton Nitschke in 19th. And running at top 20 was Aaron Gilbert. But quite a number of names in there with some great improvements throughout the race and some guys that were just really unlucky. Henry King had a fantastic round. Dave Douglas. Craig Anspach was unlucky. Tom Freer was unlucky too. Some incidents. Aaron Dodd and Brenton Hobson are some big talking points as well, guys, because they didn't finish the race after some big incidents.
Absolutely. I think it was a really great race all around. We saw some big issues right the way through up and down the field. I think the biggest one that really surprised us through the course of the race was just how much trouble the guys had trying to pull the cars up down into the hairpin, and we saw quite a few mistakes. And as we watched from the broadcast a number of times with the battle between James Scott and Corey Shepherd, James really struggling to get that car pulled up, which is very uncharacteristic from him.
Yeah, Norian, didn't Corey Shepherd show a lot of, I suppose, race craft to understand that when James Scott took that big dive that he actually got out of the way and let him go past. So, that just showed the experience that he's already gained when it comes to racing.
Absolutely. The experience of Corey has been excelling every week, racing door-to-door with James Scott. You also saw some other big movers through the field. So Adam Briggs had a bit of a mishap on his pit entry. He charged back through the field. We also had Michael Taliancic, who was nowhere in qualifying, and suddenly he was moving through the race at a great rate of knots. And the last point I've got to make on the 300k points, time after time they deliver excellent racing. How good are they? Let's get another one happening real soon.
And Dylan, I mean, you were hanging off the back of that top two for quite some time in third place. How hard is it? Where do you think they get their pace from? I mean, these guys up the front are just hard to get close to at the moment.
Yeah, there's obviously driving really well. I've got probably good car set up under them. So yeah, just trying to find those last few tenths to stay with them in the race. Yeah,
and it's super important, the pit stop strategy. James Scott has been just on point this season, hasn't he? He always seems to go just a slightly shorter pit stop, guys. I mean, has he got that fuel calculation down to the last milliliter, do you think?
He's really maximising the fuel economies, and we saw it a bit early on in the stint. He couldn't quite get past Corey Shepherd, so he tucked him behind, and we noticed very early on a lot of fuel saving being done there. And then once we saw Corey break away to come into the lane, James was able to get those couple of quick laps out, and that ultimately kept him ahead when all the pit stops cycled through.
Yeah, Norrie, another talking point. Tom Freer, mate, he had a really good pit stop strategy at some point early in the race, and I thought he was going to come out really strong and challenge the couple of guys up the front, because he had some pace in qualifying as well, but he got a pit stop penalty.
Yeah, you would think that, wouldn't you? And based on what the numbers we were seeing, that was exactly what was happening. But it wasn't to be. A pit lane penalty served by iRacing for speeding in pit lane put paid to that effort, and so therefore the myth of a good strategy couldn't come true.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for him, but I suppose, you got to risk it to get the biscuit sometimes, and unfortunately didn't pay off for him last round, but I'm sure we'll see Tom Freer back on the podium sometime very soon. But, yeah, so many people in that race. But Michael Taliancic is my big standout. I mean, that was 32 positions he gained. Started dead last in 44, and he ended up all the way in 12th. So, mate, on a supercharge, with everything happening in the field, I mean, like we saw Brenton Hobson and, of course, Aaron Dodd, there was an incident early on. They were out, so they missed quite a number of laps there towards the end. Too much damage their cars sustained, and they couldn't get back into the race. So some people really lucky, some people not so lucky. Some strategies played out, some strategies didn't. Brian Ball got himself back into the 10. He actually qualified a bit better this round, I think, and let's hope he can get a bit better at that qualifying, because he really had to fight it out throughout that race, didn't he? And I mean, there were some great battles between him, Damian Johnson, Bailey Frid was another one. Unfortunately, he lost a position from where he started, but they were all sort of tussling for those positions, going back and forth. We saw 4 wide at some point between those guys. So it was an absolutely fantastic race to be a part of. I mean, when we look at that, Dylan, where, do you know all this stuff's happening behind you? Can you see it in the rear vision mirrors? Are you looking for it? Or are you just focused on trying to stay where you are and keep the competition out?
I'm just focusing on the guys ahead, trying to stay with them. Don't really focus too much on behind you, otherwise you'll start going backwards.
Yeah, it can happen really quickly too. I tell you what, those guys push you out wide, and all of a sudden you need to be careful where you're going. But as always, of course, after our round, we do have the great photography come out from Bowler Media and Sideways Photography. Let's check out some of the photos they took this week, and let's go through them now. Yeah, some fantastic photography there coming out of Bowler Media and Sideways Photography, doing another fantastic job and really capturing some of those battles that happened throughout the race. But we are going to move on, though, to round number 11, coming to you from Charlotte this week. We go back to the sprint race, 150 kilometres, 40 laps. And, of course, this week, though, is the Anzac weekend, and it's a bit of a tribute. We know some of the teams are throwing some Anzac liveries on, and a great way to just pay some respects to, obviously, some past and present soldiers, whether they've returned or been out in servicemen and women. But as you can see up on the screen, we are going to put it up there. Some great work from the Dakota Sim Sports guys. They've already put their livery out there as a bit of a tribute there to the Anzacs. And, of course, if you want to get involved, make sure you upload your new livery to Nick before the race starts. Obviously, you need to get that done before Friday so we can all load that up. And it'll be great to see so many people carrying that Anzac livery. But it is Charlotte where we're going. We got 40 laps to get around. It's a big one to talk about. Dan, run us through the track setup.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's going to be a great race. We saw a fantastic battle there last season. We have got a little minor track revision this time, a bit of a different chicane, so we should see the guys being able to work their way through. But turning our attention to the track, 17 turns, 3.6 kilometres. It is very tricky here. It's tight, flowing, and big chance to find yourself in a wall if you're a little bit cautious on entry. So the big ones will be a tight run through turn 1, the pit wall is on your left. You've got the wall splitting the run through onto the back straight on your right there. So you've got to be very cautious of that. The run through turns 2, 3, and 4 really nice on the car. You can get a really good flow and a good run onto the middle portion of the lap. Be careful through turn 2 on the exit of turn 2, however, because that is the blend line for the pit pit exit for all the guys working their way through. The run-up through turn 6 is very tricky here for the guys. It's uphill, it's a blind entry, and it tightens on exit, which is a little bit different to what we've seen at quite a few events so far this season. So getting the car balanced on the run out of 6 to be able to hook up and kick through turn 7 before you head into turn 8 is really important. Turn 8 is another tricky one. You come off the flat, you rise up back onto the speedway, and the guys will then set off for a fair run through speedway 1, 2, and down the back straight in towards the chicane. If you can get a good drive through that, however, there is a really good opportunity for an overtake down into the chicane of turn 11. Traction, though, is all important on the exit as you work your way back out onto the back straight and up around the turn 3, 4 complex of the speedway. The next tricky spot, turns 15, 16, and 70, not only have you got the pit entry that you've got to contend with, it's also getting down off the camber of the oval, trying to get the car squared up as much as possible down through turn 16. But you've got to get a compliant car, much like we saw at turn 11. You need to bounce the car up over the curbs on both 16, the exit of 17, but keep an eye on that wall on the outside as you work your way back across the line. We're expecting some really quick laps around here. We were just having a chat with Dylan off camera, and we're estimating the guys, during qualifying at least anyway, to be somewhere around the mid to low, probably 116s, very low 117s around here. Dylan, from what we've seen from NSR, I mean, you guys have really come on strong over the course of the season. Obviously, we've had the new build from iRacing roll out partway through, and another update came out last night. How do you guys adapt with the changing circuits that we're going to, and as far as your data analysis goes, to get the most out of these cars?
Yeah, obviously Aaron Dodd and I, we've been working quite closely together, tune the setup to how we like it and how the car needs to be to go get as much out as we can around each circuit. So data helps us improving, making us faster each week. Look at each other's data. If one of us is better in a certain part of the track than another. So yeah.
And are there a few areas on this circuit, for instance, that you guys might be targeting to get a little bit better performance from the cars at all?
Yeah, obviously making a car nice over the few curbs out here, and making sure your car's got good drive over the race stint, as it's pretty important to get good drive out of the slower speed, especially the bus stop chicane, so you're not vulnerable into the last chicane. So yeah.
And I think, too, the chicane's going to be really important this time. It is a different profile to what we ran last time out. It's not going to be as fast as paced as we saw, where a lot of guys were able just to almost cut through the chicane with next to no braking. It is going to be quite a bit more challenging. And then trying to massage the cars out through turn 12 and avoid the wall on the inside and get enough drive is going to be very tricky. So it'll be interesting to see how everyone goes. I'm sure you guys are up to it based on what we've seen from NSR over the past few rounds. Norrie, we're off from that. How do you think pit stops are likely to perform? Obviously, the strategy is going to be very interesting to see where the guys decide to come in and pit.
You're not wrong, and you touched on all the key points in your track guide. The pit entry is right down off that banking at turn 14, so it's incredibly tight to get right in there to the pit limiter line and not lock your brakes and not over on your entry. The pit exit will also be difficult because you're coming out right there as turn 2 becomes turn 3, and all drivers are trying to get over to track left to make the turn in. It's a concrete canyon, so it's going to be completely diabolical, for lack of a better term. But I was able to grab one of the NSR cars. So sorry, Dylan, I have grabbed your car. I have stolen it, and I'm going to give it a bit of a squirt. So here's a run around Charlotte. G'day everyone, and welcome to Norrie's Navigation here at Charlotte Roval. Heading across the line as we're building up for a very tight twisty lap around this concrete canyon, bit wide there on turn into 1. We power out and just try and hit the apex at 2 there as we come through this concrete area through turn 3 and then turn 4. Very tight and twisty early on in the track, and you don't get too much time to build up the revs or get any power down, but you get a bit of a short squirt here. Back a couple of gears to second. You turn in and crest the hill. It's a bit of a blind apex at this one as you dart back to the left now and run around past the timing tower. Hopefully you're at the top of it. If not, you've got to work a bit harder. Out against the fence here, and you really got to put the pedal down now because it's a long sweeping curve on the oval. You've got to stick the car in the middle of and use all the G's for your advantage. Down here is the braking marker, and we've got the slowest chicane this time, so we've got to maximise entry and mid-corner and on the wall and the exit as we find some acceleration out of there. And that's not the last chicane we're going to deal with. We use the banking again to really get the car around the corner. And then you got to slow it down again as we're finding our way through this second chicane. Oh, a bit late there on the apex, but found the middle one and across the line. Thanks to the NSR Esports guys for the lend of the car tonight. I won't do any damage to it.
Well, Norrie, you got around there. You got a lap done, all thanks to Pure Driving School, of course, and you took Dylan's car for a drive. The question is it repairable?
I don't think I hit a wall. I didn't find any apexes, but no, it should be fine. Dylan, if it has lost pace, my inbox is not near the com box, so otherwise I hit.
Oh, mate, it's very tricky, though, as you can see as you go around there, the entry into the pit lane. And Dylan, how do you think you're going to cope with that one? Because it looks like it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, it's going to be make sure you don't lock your front tyres, otherwise you might get a pit lane speeding penalty, and also you need to watch out for the cars that are in front of you pulling into the pit lane so you don't rear end anyone. So it's going to be a tricky one.
Where else do you think you'll struggle on the circuit? Is there any other sort of sections that you're concerned with?
Oh, just keeping the car off the walls, main thing. Keep it clean for the whole race, and yeah, just go from there.
Well, gents, we do it every week now, and we have to talk about it. Safety car. What are we going to have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? One from Norrie?
I'm going to put down for 2. And I'm actually expecting one on lap 1, especially, well, hopefully not, but I am expecting one for lap 1, only for the fact that based on the size of the fields that we see, guys are going to be starting down in turn 16 and 17, and trying to get the cars away from there in a corner at slow speed is not going to be easy.
Dylan, what do you think? Think we'll see one safety car at least?
I'm predicting one.
Okay, there we go. I'm gonna go with you, Dan. I'm gonna say 2. Why not? We had 2 last week. I mean, it was a 300-kilometre race, only 150, but with all those concrete walls, a couple of tricky corners, especially that pit entry, pit exit, I'm suspecting we may end up with 2, and hopefully we don't see too much damage. Don't forget, of course, qualifying this week does start at 9:10 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, with the main race starting at 9:30. So if you want to join us for the coverage, 9:10 p.m. is when the coverage will get underway. It's going to be a fantastic one. Don't forget, if you haven't already, go to the YouTube channel, like and subscribe to AOSC TV. Dylan, mate, I want to thank you for coming on the show this week. Hope you had a great time.
No, thank you guys.
Of course, we do it all Friday the 23rd of April. It's race 186 in AOSC 10, all thanks to Jinx Shifters. Big shout out to all our sponsors. Once again, Track Council Gourmet, Race Circuit Art Australia, Simrigs.com, A&J Insurance Services, Sydney Computers, and of course, Bowler Media, Subways Photography. But guys, this week it is a special round. It is the Anzac round. We can't wait for everyone to join us out there on the coverage, but just as a bit of respect to the Anzacs this week, we are going to observe, instead of our normal exit out of the show, we are going to observe a bit of silence now as we play the last post. Please stand and remove your hats in silence, and we'll see you for the race.